I want to continue working on my Works Cited page using the various sources that I've already found. And I want to turn to our textbook for some additional help to make sure that I'm doing the citations correctly, those that I have not gotten from the library where it created the citation for me. So I am in our textbook and I'm in chapter 24, and I have gone to section 3.3 of chapter 24, and this is a really lengthy page. This has a lot of information on it, and so it's not just what shows on this page, but we can scroll down a long distance. So this starts by showing us how to do a print source. So if you're using a book, for instance, and need to know how to cite it, then here you go. Here's how you would create that, the different pieces that you would use. And I've used the different colors here to show the different chunks of information that you need to make sure you include if you have them. And then the same thing with an online source. And so I'm going to guess that a lot of you will be using online sources. And so we always want to look first to see if there's an author and list that person or that organization. If there is, then the title of the source, that would be in quotation marks, and then the container that it came from, so the web page that it came from. And so I can already see that I need to do something differently on one of my sources that I pasted in and started creating. And then other information, if there is any of that to provide. I know I had looked for a publication date when I was looking at that Plastic Pollution Coalition page, and I didn't see one, but that's one of the pieces I would include. And then the location. We did put that in with the URL and then the date that I accessed that information. If there had been a publication date, I wouldn't have needed my access date. But because there was not a publication date, that means that web page could change. And I need to make sure I protected myself by putting the date that I accessed it. So I'm going to keep on going. And this allows you here in our textbook, our online textbook, to click on these various pieces to learn more information about them. But I'm going to keep scrolling. You can come back and do that if you need to do that. So then it gives examples of how to do various sources. And so scholarly journals, with one author, two authors, more than two authors, a print article in a magazine or a newspaper, an editorial, a letter to the editor, a print book, and how to do that with a various number of authors, a different edition, how you would include that, a book that's been republished, a book that is in multi-volumes and you're from a familiar reference work or a less familiar reference work, something in translation, something that's an illustrated book, a graphic novel with a group author, a corporate author, and that's what we have with that website. And a lot of times you'll have that where an organization rather than a person is the author. When you don't have an author, if you're using an entire anthology, and then coming down to what we are using more with the online databases. And so this shows an example from Academic Search Complete, but you can have Academic Search Complete create the citation for you when we use the library. So you don't need to worry about how to do this. You can just copy it and paste it in. If you want to look and see how it's been put together, here's an example of it. So, to keep going, and they break that down into some different parts. A scholarly e-journal, a broadcast transcript from a website, an e-book from an online database, an e-book on Kindle or iPad or another e-reader, an example of how to do that. So they really have provided us an amazing assortment. And then other internet sources, and that's really what we're looking at. So an article on a website, here's how you would do that. Much of the time, you will not have an author. But again, each of these different colors is the chunk that you want to look for. So if you don't have an author, you begin with the next one. And you see the name of the page, the name of the article, would be in quotation marks, and then the name of the site it came from would be italicized, and then the date that it was published, if there is one, would be next. And you see the order that that's put in, and how it's abbreviated, and how it's punctuated around it. And then there is the URL for that. Because it has a specific publication date, you would not need to put an access date at the end. That's not the case on this next one. It doesn't have a publication date because we're looking at the entire website, and so you would need to put the date that you accessed it. And again, those different chunks are provided for you in different colors. You don't use those colors when you create it yourself. Those different colors are what our textbook is providing so that you can see the different chunks of information. A document within a website, and so an article, a page within a website, how that would be done, and so just some different examples of that. A broadcast transcript from a website, a blog posting, how interesting that, or a tweet. It's very current, a podcast, a web video, and that's what I want to show you because I've decided to process that a little differently from how I have had already done that on my Works Cited page. Goes on then to the home page for a website, an email, how you might cite that, and then some miscellaneous sources. So an episode of a TV or a radio program, a film or video recording, a song on a CD. I love that they used Bob Dylan's Rainy Day Women, number 12. If you're citing the entire CD, you would do it one way. If you're citing a song, then you would do it a different way, because there would be both the item from the CD and then the CD itself. A cartoon or an advertisement in print or online. How to handle an interview. So if you end up doing a personal interview with someone as one of your sources, and here's shows you how to do that. A lecture, speech, or conference presentation. So if you're using notes from a class, for instance, you could do that, but you have to make sure that you cite it and that you create the citation correctly. Government publications are a little trickier. They give several examples of that. And then they refer us to chapter 16 in our textbook, a paper at the end of chapter 16 that is done in MLA format, and so you can see that. So I'm going to scroll back up so that I can see the example of how to do this to make sure that I handle this correctly. So the website, a document within a website, and then I wanted to find the web video. All right, so here we go. So I go back to my page from the Plastic Pollution Coalition, and I want to use this particular page. It has the title for the page is Jeff Bridges Speaks Truth to Plastic, but it's from this website. And so let's say I want to use some of the information that he has used in here, for instance, where he talks about how he has become part of this organization, how he began to care about this, or maybe where he talks about steps that we can use, some steps that he abides by and recommends for us as we may start on this path. And so we may want to cite that in our paper. So I want to use that article. And then I also clicked on this video and asked it to open in YouTube. And so I have access to that here in YouTube. And so I want to come back to my Works Cited page and see what I have done there. So I have Open Your Eyes, the Plastic Pollution Coalition, but I have linked this to the web page instead of to YouTube. And so I want to link it differently, and I want to use that website. All right, so I have to think about how I want to do this. I see now that I want to use this link from the Plastic Pollution Coalition, so I'm going to have to put that in italic because that is the page that I'm getting this from. And the name of the article on this website is called Jeff Bridges speaks truth to plastic. And this was published on a specific date. So I'm going to make some changes to my Works Cited page. Jeff Bridges speaks truth to plastic. Is the name of that particular page. It's published by and on the website of the Plastic Pollution Coalition. Now you see it's bumped my part of my URL down to the next page because that much wouldn't fit. So I'm going to break it here and see if that's enough for it to fit on this line. Okay, whoops, I don't want to do that. Let me see if I can backspace and put it back up there. Okay, it's still too long there, so let me undo what I just did. I'm going to break it here maybe at that line. Okay, and see what I just did there is made a mistake because I tried to do something to it while it was while it was a URL. And so I need to right click on this and remove the hyperlink. Now I can click on it and hit enter. Okay, it pulled that up to the next page. That's what I wanted to the previous line. So I can remove the hyperlink. I can hit enter and then hit delete and then tab over. And now I can start pulling this up and this will all fit. All right. Now, because this article was published on a particular date, I don't need to put when I accessed it, but I do need to put the date of that publication in here. So let me come back to chapter 24 and see where I do that. So I'm using a page from a website. And actually it is a blog, so this is going to give me an example of it. Although it doesn't have an author. I do have the name of my article, that Jeff Bridges Speaks Truth to Plastic. I have the name of the site it came from. Then I have a comma, and then the date, and then a comma, and the URL. So let me correct that. So I need to change that to a comma, and then the date that it was published, which was 28 March 2016. So I want to put that in MLA format here, 28 March 2016, comma, and then I'll have just a piece of my URL. I don't know that I can include much of anything of that. I need to right click on it, remove the hyperlink first so I can do something in it. All right. Now remove the hyperlink again and then tab this over and then pull this up. All right. Looks like I have that one finished. So just a lot of work for that. Now for my YouTube video, I'm going to look at my example over here in our textbook and see how that needs to be done, and see that I'm going to have the name of the video, then YouTube, then the date it was published, and then the URL for that. And so I can come back into this and I can copy this with Plastic Pollution Coalition, Open Your Eyes, overview narrated by Jeff Bridges. I think I'm going to copy that whole thing and use that as my title. So I'm going to copy that and paste that in. And I know I'm going to have to come back and do some cleanup on this to put it in alphabetical order. And I also see that I'm running out of time. So I'm going to put that as the name of the video. And that I need to get rid of stuff in quotation marks. I may just change that back to Open Your Eyes. But that will have a period at the end of it. Then I would have YouTube as the name of the source. And then I would have the date of publication. And that's what I need to do for my YouTube video.